In the quiet of the night, as you drift toward rest, let your mind wander to the old lands of Ireland, a place where the mist clings softly to the hills and the air hums with the memory of gods and dreams. Tonight's tale is not of battle or storm but of light, a light born from the heart of the earth itself. It is the story of Brigid, daughter of the Dagda, the good god of the earth and plenty. She is the keeper of the sacred flame, the warmth that heals, inspires and creates. Her story is one of renewal and grace, a reminder that even in the quietest moments, the smallest light can awaken life again. So, as you settle beneath the calm of the evening, let the sound of her story guide you. Through the mists, through the dawn, through the flame that never fades. If this story brings you a moment of peace, let your support be known with a gentle click to subscribe, and more myths will come to find you. Now, take a slow breath, and let us begin. The story of Brigid, the flame that never dies. In the quiet hours before dawn, when the mist hung soft over the hills, there was a stirring in the earth. It was not the trembling of the land under the weight of storms, nor the crack of thunder that roused the sky. No, this was something far gentler, a warmth rising up from the very heart of the world, as if the earth itself had dreamed of a light that would never fade. From that dream was born Brigid, daughter of the Dagda, and her first breath was like the opening of a new season. The wind, once heavy with rain and shadow, now carried the scent of new life. She arrived as the morning sun touched the horizon, casting a soft glow that stretched across the green hills of Ireland, turning everything it touched into something sacred, something renewed. Brigid was the flame that flickered first in the dawn, a flame of gentle light, one that did not burn with the fury of the world, but rather with a steady warmth, like the glow of embers in a quiet hearth. She was the flame that brought hope, the flame that brought rebirth, and from this flame 3 gifts were born: the flame of inspiration, the flame of healing, and the flame of craft. These were her gifts to the world, each a spark of life in its own right, each one shining with a promise of renewal. The flame of inspiration was a light that whispered to poets and artists, urging them to see the world through new eyes, to create from the depths of their souls. It was the fire that danced in the hearts of those who wove the tales of old, who sang the songs that carried through the ages. This was the fire that called forth the words of the ancients, the stories that would echo in the hearts of all who heard them. The flame of healing was a soft light, like the warmth of the sun on the skin after a long cold night. It was the fire that touched the wounded, the sick, and the grieving, offering solace and comfort. It was the flame that soothed the aches of the body and the sorrow of the soul, a flame that never flickered out, always burning steady, always offering its light in times of darkness. And the flame of craft was the flame that guided the hands of artisans and builders, of weavers and smiths. It was the fire that inspired them to create with purpose, to shape the world around them with skill and care. This flame burned in the forge and in the loom, in the pottery wheel and in the carving of wood. It was the fire that transformed simple materials into things of beauty and usefulness, the fire that made the world more whole. As Brigid grew, so too did her light. It became a beacon, not just for the gods of the land, but for the people as well. In the quiet moments of evening, as the stars blinked to life above the hills, Brigid's light would be seen, glistening across the water, shimmering among the trees. Her laughter, bright as the sun itself, echoed through the valleys, carrying with it the promise of peace, of joy, and of warmth. Her father, the Dagda, who ruled over the harvest, and the fertile land looked upon her with pride. He saw in her the future of all things, of love and of life, of art and of healing. Brigid was not like the other gods, fierce and untamed in their power, but rather she was a gentle light, steady and enduring. Her flame was one that would last long after the great storms had passed and the world had quieted. And so, as the earth grew bright with her gifts, Brigid became the keeper of a flame that never dies. It burned in the hearts of those who sought to create, to heal, to be inspired. And in this light the world found itself again and again reborn. As the seasons turned, Brigid's light grew stronger, casting its warmth over the lands of Ireland, where the fields bloomed beneath the glow of her presence. She became a figure of beauty and grace, beloved by both gods and mortals alike. The laughter that echoed from her lips was like music, a melody that seemed to rise from the earth itself, a sound as pure and bright as the morning sun. And yet, even with all her radiance, there was something about her that held the earth close, something tender and humble, as if she knew the secret of life. That beauty and light are born from the very soil of the world, from the warmth that lies beneath, just waiting to rise. It was not long before Brigid's heart too began to grow, and in her heart there bloomed a love unlike any other. She found her mate in Bray, the king of the Fomorians, whose light was like a shadow, flickering and uncertain. Together they brought balance, their union a harmony of fire and dark, light and shadow, each completing the other in ways that the world needed. Their love was one of contrast, a reflection of the world itself, a love both fierce and gentle, a love that would one day bring forth a son, Ruadan. When Ruadan was born, the world seemed to stop for a moment, as if even time itself paused to take in the new light that had entered the world. His cries, though soft, carried with them the weight of something ancient, something profound, a song that had been waiting to be sung since the beginning of the world. He was the child of both light and shadow, the son of Brigid's flame and Bress's lingering dusk. But the world, as it often does, had its own designs, and the peace that Brigid and Bress had forged was soon to be tested. A great war was waged between the Tuatha De Danann and the Fomorians, a battle for the future of the land. It was in the chaos of this war that Ruadan, still a child, met his fate. He fell in battle, struck down by the dark forces of the Fomorians. The news of his death reached Brigid like a cold wind, and in that moment, the warmth that had always burned so brightly within her seemed to falter. For the first time her flame dimmed, flickering as if it might extinguish altogether. Her grief was like nothing the world had ever seen, a cry that rang out across the hills and valleys, echoing through the very bones of the earth. It was the first keening, the mournful wail of a mother who had lost her child, a sound so raw and real that it became part of the land, part of the air, part of the very song of life itself. But even in her sorrow, Brigid's light did not fade. It softened, yes, and it trembled, but it did not go out. The grief she felt became a part of her flame, and in her tears she found a new purpose. For in the depths of her mourning, Brigid learned something sacred, that even in the deepest sorrow there is a space for healing, and in the deepest loss there is a place for love to grow again. Her flame, once so bright, now shone, with a new warmth, one that could mend broken hearts and ease the pain of all who suffered. The goddess who had once inspired and created now healed, and her healing flame spread across the land. Wherever there was pain, Brigid's flame would burn, offering comfort and solace. It was a flame that did not ask for anything in return, a flame that simply offered itself to the world, as steady and unyielding as the earth beneath. Brigid's light was not a force that sought to conquer or burn, but one that understood the fragile balance between creation and destruction, between life and death. Her flame, though born from the highest of the heavens, was as grounded as the roots of the trees that whispered in the winds. She had become something even more than a goddess. She was a symbol of resilience, of enduring love, and of the quiet strength that arises from the heart of a mother who has known both joy and sorrow. In her quiet grief, Brigid found her greatest strength, and the world, in turn, was healed. The fields grew green again, the rivers ran clear, and the air itself seemed to hum with the promise of new beginnings. Though her heart would always carry the memory of her son, she knew that her flame would never go out. For her fire was not one of fleeting passion, but a steady, eternal light, a light that would carry the world through every dark night and into the brightness of every dawn. As the seasons spun onward, carrying with them the years, Brigid's flame, tempered by sorrow and tempered by love, spread farther across the land. The warmth of her light was sought not only by the gods who had once walked among the hills and mists, but by all who sought peace, healing, and inspiration. Her presence, once confined to the high places and the sacred groves, now found its way into the hearts of the people, lighting their homes, their fires, their very souls. The legends of her wisdom and beauty continued to grow, as did her gifts. The flame of inspiration she had kindled in poets and artists burned more brightly, sparking creativity and song in every corner of the island. It was said that those who spoke with her felt the stirrings of the ancient winds, the winds of the gods, and found their voices lifted as if carried by the very air itself. It was a magic that lived not just in the gods, but in every breath of the land, in the rustling of the trees, in the song of the rivers, and those who listened closely could hear it, the echoes of the past calling forth new words, new visions, new dreams. Yet it was her healing flame that touched the people most deeply. It was said that wherever there was illness, whether it be in the body or the spirit, Brigid's light would burn quietly, casting away the shadow of pain. Her fire was a balm, a light that soothed broken hearts and mended weary souls. There was a softness to it, a tenderness that healed with no need for words, no need for promises. It was simply there, constant and unwavering, like the comfort of a mother's embrace, a mother who had borne the weight of the world's grief and yet still offered her warmth to those in need. Brigid's light, born of both the earth and the sky, was not a fire that consumed, it was one that nurtured. She had seen the deepest sorrow, and from that sorrow she had drawn a wisdom that only those who had known such pain could possess. And so she healed not only with touch and word, but with the deep understanding that the world, in all its beauty and its darkness, was worth loving. She loved it not for its perfection, but for its imperfection, for the way it sought to grow, to bloom, to find light even in the darkest places. And so it was that she became not only a goddess but a guardian, a protector of the sacred flame that could never be extinguished. Her flame would carry through every heart that sought it, and from that flame the people would know hope, no matter how deep the night. She was the keeper of the eternal fire, the one who could never forget the warmth of the earth beneath her feet, even when the skies above seemed to fade into winter's cold embrace. It was in the time of this eternal light that Brigid's flame found its place in Kildare, a land where the green hills rose like gentle waves, where the rivers wound through the land like ribbons of silver. Here Brigid's followers, those who knew her flame, built a sanctuary, a place where her light could burn forever, a place where the people could come to feel her warmth and her peace. The flame in Kildare became a symbol of everything she had given to the world, a flame that could never be extinguished, no matter the trials of time. And so, in Kildare, the flame burned on, undying. It flickered softly at the heart of the land, its light a steady glow in the twilight of the world. The fields around it grew rich with harvest. The air grew sweet with the scent of blooming flowers, and the rivers shimmered beneath the golden light of the sun. The fire that Brigid had kindled all those years ago, in the quiet of the dawn, still burned brightly in the hearts of her people. It had become more than a divine flame. It had become a human flame, one that spoke of enduring love, of the strength to carry on through the darkest times, and of the power that comes from simply tending to the light within. And yet, as her flame endured, so did Brigid herself. The years passed, but her light never dimmed. She was the light that kept watch over the land, the light that guided the lost, the weary, and the hopeful. She became not just a goddess, but a presence, something both eternal and immediate, something that touched the heart with a quiet, knowing peace. And in every flicker of her flame there was a promise, that no matter how dark the night, how deep the sorrow, how fierce the storm, there would always be a light to lead the way. Her flame was not a fire that sought to burn the world, but one that wished to warm it, to fill it with hope, to carry it through every winter and into every spring. The years passed like the ripples of a stream, slow and steady, each moment carrying Brigid's light farther into the hearts of all who sought solace, inspiration, and healing. Her flame, once held aloft in the heavens, now danced quietly within the world of mortals, her touch woven into every dawn, her warmth felt in every embrace. Though the great gods of the past had faded into memory, Brigid's light endured, a constant and gentle presence that lingered, always, in the spaces between the stars. In the quiet corners of Ireland, where the earth whispered ancient songs to those who would listen, the flame of Brigid's fire was kept alive by her devoted followers, the priestesses of Kildare. They tended to the sacred flame with reverence, their lives a testament to the light they carried. The flame itself, though born of the divine, became something deeply human, something that connected all who sought its warmth. It was no longer just the light of a goddess, it had become the light of the people, the heartbeat of the land itself. And it was in Kildare that the flame truly took root, nestled in the heart of the green hills, where the wildflowers bloomed beneath its golden glow and the rivers hummed with the pulse of life. The city itself flourished, its fields heavy with crops, its sky always painted in hues of soft amber and rose, the light of the flame making everything it touched shimmer with the promise of renewal. The flame at Kildare became a place of pilgrimage, a beacon that called to those who were lost, who sought meaning or comfort, who had only the smallest spark of hope left inside them. The people came from every corner of the world, and in their hearts they carried with them the stories of Brigid, stories of a goddess whose light never faded, whose warmth could heal any wound, whose love could bridge the divide between life and death. They came not just to see the flame, but to feel it, to allow its soft, steady light to touch their hearts, to quiet their fears and soothe their sorrow. And though the flame was kept by the priestesses, it was not a flame that belonged to any one person. It was a flame that belonged to all. It was a flame that understood the rhythms of the earth, the ebb and flow of the seasons, the rise and fall of life itself. It burned not for glory but for peace, not for power, but for the eternal renewal of all that was good and true. In this place, under the glow of Brigid's flame, the world seemed to find its balance again. The people worked the land with steady hands, guided by the wisdom that had been passed down through the ages. They sang songs, told stories, and crafted the world around them with the skill born of Brigid's flame. In every work of art, in every basket woven, in every song sung, there was the mark of her fire, the steady warmth that reminded them that life, though fleeting, was always worth living. Even as the world around them changed, as new rulers rose and old empires fell, the flame of Kildare remained. It was the quiet heart of the land, a constant through time's ceaseless march. Those who sought it found not just solace, but a sense of belonging, a reminder that they were part of something much greater, something that transcended the years. For Brigid's flame, though tender and quiet, was eternal. And though the flame continued to burn in Kildare, it also spread in small ways to every hearth, to every home. It became the fire that mothers lit in their kitchens, the light that fathers passed on to their children in stories, the warmth that gathered people around the table. Brigid's flame lived not just in the grand sanctuaries, but in the very fabric of everyday life, in the small, quiet moments where the world felt at peace. Her flame was never a blaze of conquest, never a fire that sought to dominate the world. No, it was a light that sought only to illuminate, to warm, to give life where there had once been darkness. It was the light that whispered of love, of renewal, of the infinite cycles of life that moved in their own time. It was the light that reminded the world that no matter how many storms came, no matter how deep the night, there would always be a new dawn. As the world shifted, passing through centuries like the turning of the seasons, the flame of Brigid continued to burn, steady and eternal. But the world itself was changing. The age of gods was beginning to fade into the mists of time, replaced by new faiths, new ways of seeing the world. The gods of the old ways, once so tangible and powerful, became stories. Yet Brigid's light never faltered. It remained, a steady flame at the heart of the land, a reminder of something deeper, something timeless. In the changing world, a new dawn was breaking, a new faith was rising, and with it, the old ways were gradually slipping away. The fire of the ancient gods, once feared and revered, was being quietly replaced by the light of a new belief, a new path for the people of Ireland. But even as the world shifted, Brigid's flame did not cease to burn. It was in this time of transition that Brigid's story took on a new form, not as a goddess of the old ways, but as something else entirely, a saint for a new world. Her flame was transformed, though it remained ever the same. The sacred fire of Kildare, where her priestesses had tended to her light for generations, was now seen as a beacon of the divine, even as the symbols around it began to change. Though she had once been worshipped in the old ways, Brigid's essence now lived on in the hearts of the faithful, transformed into a symbol of love, healing, and peace that transcended the divide between old and new. The land of Ireland, still rich with the whispers of the gods, now hummed with a new song, one that spoke of unity, of light that endured through every storm, through every trial. The people who gathered in Kildare still spoke of her with reverence, their prayers rising like smoke from the hearths. They still spoke of her as the protector of the land, the keeper of fire, the one whose light could never be extinguished. But now she was known not just as a goddess of the old times, but as Saint Brigid, a saint who bridged the world of myth and the world of faith. Her flame, though it had once burned in the hearts of the gods, now burned in the hearts of all who called upon her, regardless of their path. Her story became one of transformation, of the sacred flame that did not die with the passing of the old ways, but lived on in a new form, in a new world. The flame of Brigid, once held only by the gods, now belonged to everyone. It was a flame that could be found in every hearth, in every home, in every heart that sought to find peace, to heal, and to create. The light of the old world became the light of the new, and in this light the world was reborn, again and again. In the gentle glow of Brigid's flame the world found peace. It was a flame that did not judge, that did not seek to conquer, but only to offer warmth, comfort and healing to all who came near. It was the light that whispered of hope and renewal, a reminder that no matter the darkness, the light would always return. The world had changed, yes, but the eternal flame of Brigid remained, glowing in the hearts of all who believed, glowing in the earth beneath their feet, glowing in the very air they breathed. And in Kildare, where the sacred fire burned, the world still whispered her name. It was said that her flame would never go out, for it was the flame of life itself, the light that never dies. In the quiet stillness of the world, where time stretched into eternity, Brigid's flame flickered softly. It was the flame that had once given birth to the world, the flame that had healed broken hearts and inspired the hearts of poets. It was the flame that still burned brightly, though the centuries had passed, though the gods had faded, though the world had moved on. Brigid's light was not a light bound by time, not a light that could be forgotten. Her flame lived on, not only in the sanctuary of Kildare but in the hearts of all who sought the warmth of her light. Her flame was the flame of compassion, of motherhood, of healing, and of renewal. It was the flame that lived in every dawn, in every birth, in every act of kindness and creation. Brigid had become something far greater than a goddess or a saint. She had become a symbol of the eternal flame that never dies, the light that carries us through the darkest times and into the brightness of every new day. The centuries stretched on, and still, Brigid's flame flickered in the hearts of those who sought it. In the soft embrace of the earth, in the glimmer of the morning sun, in the quiet moments of reflection by every hearth, Brigid's light found its way. It was no longer a fire bound to the heavens or to any one place. It had transcended, becoming part of every living thing, a gentle presence that whispered through the winds, hummed beneath the rivers, and bloomed in the fields. Her flame had passed beyond the realms of gods and mortals, becoming something more, a constant, a pulse in the rhythm of the world. Her warmth was no longer a distant thing to be worshipped from afar, but a living force, woven through time and space, carried by the hands and hearts of those who followed her ways, who loved her as one loves the most familiar and beloved of friends. Those who carried her flame understood that it was not just a symbol, but a way of being, a way of living in harmony with the world and all its cycles. In Ireland, where the soft hills still rose up like the spine of an ancient creature, the land still hummed with Brigid's presence. The light she had kindled, though not the same flame that once burned in the sacred fire of Kildare, was present everywhere. It was in the dew that formed on the grass in the earliest hours of morning, in the golden glow that danced across the waters as the sun rose, in the glow of a fire lit to warm the hands of a weary traveller. It was in every act of creation, in every song, in every thoughtful word. Brigid's flame had become part of the very fabric of the world itself, woven into the hearts of all those who sought the beauty and the peace of her light. And yet, though her light was woven into the very air, there were moments when it seemed that the flame, though eternal, was slipping into the quiet background of time. In the heart of the world, where the world spun forward toward the unknown, her story became a thread, delicate and fine, woven into the tapestry of the land's history. But there, in the stillness of dusk, her flame still flickered, a quiet reminder of something sacred and unyielding. The priests and priestesses who once tended the fire of Kildare had passed into history, and the grand temples where her flame had once burned brightly were no longer the centres of worship they once were. Yet the flame itself remained, alive in the memory of those who'd gathered around it, and in the hearts of those who still told her story. Her flame, like the earth itself, never forgot the cycles of life. It was reborn every spring with the first warm breath of the earth. It pulsed in the stars that dotted the sky, in the firelight of hearths that burned through the cold winter nights. Her flame was the pulse of life itself, always burning, always there, in the quiet moments and in the grand events of the world. For Brigid was not merely a goddess, nor was she a saint. She was the embodiment of something deeper, something that transcended time, a living force that carried the spark of life itself. She was the flame that did not burn to destroy, but to create, to nourish, and to renew. She was the fire that whispered of rebirth in every ending, the warmth that held all in its embrace. And in the hearts of those who loved her, Brigid's flame still burned, not as a distant, abstract thing, but as something deeply personal, something rooted in the very core of life. In every whispered prayer, in every song sung by firelight, in every child born, Brigid's flame still flickered gently in the corners of the world, reminding the people of the beauty in creation, in healing, and in the endless cycles of life. Her flame was the light that guided them through the night, the warmth that carried them through the storms, and the peace that waited at the end of every journey. Though the world would continue to change, though time would continue its ceaseless march, Brigid's light would never fade. For it was not a light bound by the rules of time, nor by the bounds of this world. It was a light that transcended, that remained steady in the hearts of those who believed in its power. The fire of Brigid, the flame that never dies, would continue to burn softly, steadily, through the fabric of the world, through the changing of the seasons, through the ebb and flow of the ages. It would always be there, a constant presence, offering warmth and comfort to all who sought its embrace. For as long as there were hands to weave, hearts to heal, and voices to sing, the flame of Brigid would continue to glow. It would continue to light the path of those who sought peace, those who sought to create, and those who sought to remember that no matter how dark the night, there would always be a light to guide them home. The world, though it changed, still carried within it the essence of all that had come before. In the land where Brigid's flame had first kindled, the earth continued to hum with a quiet reverence for the goddess who had walked its soil and tended to its fire. But the world had grown quieter, more distant from the old stories, as the winds of time carried the last echoes of the gods further into myth. Yet, in the heart of Ireland, beneath the soft curve of its hills and the sweep of its sky, Brigid's flame still flickered, a reminder that the sacred could be found in the simplest of things. Kildare, the place where her sacred fire had once burned in the hands of her priestesses, had become a land steeped in history. Yet even now those who walked its fields could feel the remnants of the flame's warmth. The river that wound through the land seemed to hum with a subtle pulse, as though it carried within it the memories of something much older than the trees that grew along its banks. The air itself seemed to hold a quiet reverence, as though it remembered the promise of renewal, the promise of life that Brigid's flame had given. In the quiet of the mornings, when the light was still soft and the world seemed to be holding its breath, you could almost hear the whisper of Brigid's presence. It was in the song of the birds, in the rush of the river, in the rustling of leaves in the trees. Her flame, though no longer seen with the eyes, was felt in every living thing that breathed the air of the land. It was as if the very essence of her had become the land itself, the light in the sky, the warmth in the earth, the spark in every living heart. Her legacy, though transformed, was still alive. It lived not just in the memories of the people who once called her a goddess, but in the hearts of those who carried her flame into a new world. Brigid had always been a symbol of peace and transformation, of healing and renewal, and as the world turned, that flame did not simply survive. It evolved. Now, as a saint in the Christian tradition, Brigid's fire had taken on a new meaning. Though the worship of the old gods had faded, her essence remained, a guiding light in a time of great change. The flame of Brigid had transcended its origins as a pagan goddess of the earth and had become something more, an eternal symbol of love and compassion, of a light that could never die. Her followers, now a community of Christians, still gathered at the sacred site in Kildare. But instead of offering sacrifices to a goddess, they lit candles, they offered prayers. They remembered the flame as a source of warmth and inspiration. The sacred fire still burned there, not in the same way it once had, but its presence was no less profound. It had become a beacon not only for the Irish people but for all who sought solace in the promise of Brigid's eternal light. The priestesses who had once kept her flame now passed down their knowledge and devotion in different ways. They shared stories, not of divine acts, but of simple, quiet acts of kindness and love, acts that were, in their essence, the true continuation of Brigid's work. They taught that the flame was not merely something to be revered from afar, but something to carry within one's heart, to nurture with each act of healing, each work of art, each moment of quiet generosity. And so, Brigid's fire was no longer just the flame that had burned at Kildare. It was a flame that burned in every home, in every heart. It was a flame that endured through every dark season, through every trial, through every change in the world. It became the flame of humanity, the flame that said, no matter how deep the darkness, there is always a light that will guide us home. In every act of creation, in every healing touch, in every word of comfort spoken to a grieving soul, there was Brigid's flame. It had woven itself into the very fabric of life, not as a distant divine force, but as something tangible, something that could be lived and shared in every moment. She was the warmth of the hearth, the glow of the evening sky, the tender light that softened the edges of a harsh world. The stories of Brigid, though they had shifted over time, were still told. Her flame, though transformed, still burned bright. And in that glow, there was peace, there was hope, there was the promise that no matter how much the world changed, there would always be something constant, something sacred, something true. And so, the people continued to tell the story of Brigid, the goddess of fire, the healer, the creator, the saint, whose flame could never die. They passed it on through their actions, through their art, through their prayers. Her flame was not just the past, but the future, not just the divine, but the human. It was the flame that lived on in every act of love, of compassion, and of creation, burning forever in the hearts of those who carried it. In the golden light of the setting sun, when the day began to turn toward night, it was easy to imagine that Brigid's flame still burned, soft and steady somewhere in the distance. It was the light that never flickered out, the warmth that never faded, a flame that would always find its way back, no matter how far the journey or how long the night. As the centuries continued their quiet march forward, and the ancient rhythms of the earth seemed to hold their breath beneath the changing winds, Brigid's flame lived on in the hearts of the people. In every story, in every tradition, in every gesture of kindness, the essence of her light found its place. The cycle of the seasons, the rise and fall of empires, the ebb and flow of life itself. Through all these, her flame endured, a constant reminder that no matter what else might change, some things were eternal. In the stillness of dusk, as the world seemed to slow and the night began to weave its gentle threads across the sky, Brigid's flame flickered in the quiet spaces between the stars. The people who had once prayed to her as a goddess now held her light within their hearts, not as a distant figure in a forgotten age, but as a presence that could be felt, that could be lived. The flame of Brigid had become something deeply personal, something that belonged not to the past, but to the present, to the future. Her flame, once a fire that burned bright in the sacred sanctuary of Kildare, now lived in the hearts of every person who called upon her, in every quiet prayer offered in the dim light of a hearth, in every work of art created, in every moment of healing shared between hands. It was no longer the fire of one goddess, but the fire that burned in every act of love, of renewal, of creation. It was the steady flame that warmed the weary, inspired the artist, and soothed the grieving. Brigid's story, now intertwined with the tale of St. Brigid, symbolised the delicate, timeless dance between the old world and the new. It was a story that transcended boundaries of faith, culture, and time. It was a story of transformation, a story of a flame that, though it had once burned in the world of gods, now lived in the world of mortals, flickering gently in the hearts of all who believed in its warmth. As the centuries passed, the flame of Brigid found its way into the homes of the people, into the churches, into the fields where they worked, into the quiet moments of reflection beneath the open sky. The flame had become a quiet companion, always present, always there, a reminder that the light of the past could guide the way into the future. In every dawn, in every new beginning, there was the warmth of Brigid's flame, flickering softly in the first light of day, as steady as the heartbeat of the earth itself. In Kildare, the flame was still kept alive, now tended not just by priests and priestesses, but by the community. It had become a symbol of continuity, of something that could never be extinguished, even as the world moved forward. The fire at Kildare was no longer just a physical flame, but a symbol of the eternal, a flame that lived in the hearts of all who came to visit, a flame that burned in every prayer, every song, every moment of love that was offered to the world. And in the quiet moments, when the world paused and the last light of day melted into the soft embrace of night, there was a sense of peace that came with knowing that Brigid's flame would never go out. It would continue to burn in the hearts of the people, in every act of kindness, in every tender moment, in every creation born from the soul. The flame would never die, for it was not a flame bound by time or by the whims of the world. It was the flame of life itself, the flame that had kindled the earth and the heavens, the flame that had warmed the hearts of gods and mortals alike. It was the flame that would always find its way home, to every heart that needed it, to every soul that sought its warmth. Brigid's flame was the light that guided through every dark night, the warmth that soothed every ache, the quiet light that lived in the spaces between the moments, in the pauses between breaths. The world may have changed, but the flame of Brigid, her light, her warmth, remained. It was in the hearts of all who remembered, in the souls of those who believed, in the lives of those who sought to create, to heal, to love. Her flame would never die. It would burn forever,